All right, ladies and gentlemen, I never get to say this. This is Crazy Damn Canadians, episode number 28, which happens to be Kyle Sampson's favorite number.
That's not true. I just was messing with you.
True. It also means that there was 27 really good people, and now we're hitting the B-roll. This is the start of the B-roll of Prince George.
Because anybody after us, they're gonna hate you.
After us is.
You just insulted all of our future guests.
That's true. Well, I'd have to watch this to know they're insulted. So,
touche.
Before
we even start, I think we need to give recognition to our executive producer, Selen. The first time ever having an audience. I think we actually have multiple people sitting over there. Yeah, this is a safe place.
We have Selen behind glass, but it's not because of COVID.
It's like the Pope.
Yeah, exactly. We're worried about.
I don't actually know if that reference is any good anymore.
I can tell what this kind of conversation is going to be. All right, so we're here with David Horton and Kyle Sampson, two good friends of mine, and we're going to have a conversation about a few things. We all have a few common passions. Events are a common passion for all of us. Philanthropy, common passion for all of us. Community is definitely a common passion for all of us, and so
and Dave's family.
Yeah, exactly.
We all seem to love your family.
Yeah. Everybody but Dave. Yeah, they love the children as long as Dave's not there.
And that is, look, it actually is one of the first things. So I guess the first question I was going to ask is because this is, storing a memory or a note of who these people are for all time. So the first question is, people won't know. They saw your name, you do an event, and they saw this name David Horton, but nobody knows who you are. So I'm going to ask you first, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from,
One of my favorite things was after the Candy Cruise Prince George, you put this picture on Facebook, or on Hell Yeah Prince George, you put that picture up, and it was a picture from 9 or 10 years ago where I'm holding my twins and bottle feeding both of them. And then all these comments were like, oh, like a young guy with a young family. And it's like, that is a 10-year-old picture. And those boys are like 10 years old. Anyway, it was
I will admit I'm lazy when I post anything. I literally just open Facebook. I'm like, that's a picture of David. Copy.
That is David Horton. I picked this one. My name is Dave Horton. I've lived in Prince George essentially my whole life. I lived on the island for 2 years when I went to school and worked at another camp. I worked for Nest Lake Bible Camp, and that's been a lot of the kind of my community connection over the last 16 years especially, but I've been working there full time for 16 years, which is pretty wild. I've got a lot of kids.
Yeah, how many kids do you have? Because this is a big thing.
Currently we have 6, but we're foster parents as well, so we just had 7, and then that kid went back to a different home. So
yeah, and one of the things I learned about you right away, which is notable about you, I think it's one of the defining things about you as a human being, is they're not all your biological children that you ended up adopting.
Yeah, our family is not as we planned it. I think most people sit down, as you ask, it's always the joys, right, of asking somebody in their early 20s, so what's your life going to look like? Well, I'm going to have this many kids, I'm going to work this kind of job. And the older I get, the more it's like, what? Yeah. I get why old people had a hard time listening to me talk about I'm going to do this and I'm going to be this, and it's like you just don't know. And so we'd planned to have 2 or 3 kids and then hit the infertility thing, took the bunk beds apart. We tried everything, man. We tried everything. Couldn't have kids, so then we said we'd never do fostering. Said just too tough. How do you take somebody else's kid and then give them back to a system or whatever? And then that's exactly what we ended up doing. We ended up getting into the foster system and then adopting our first foster kid and his sister. It's a long thing. This story's not long enough. Kyle's here too. So I have 6 kids. Yeah, 4 of our kids are adopted. 2 of our kids came from our fertility clinic. We were pregnant with triplets and lost one and had twins. And it's just but I think people look at a family and they're like, wow, 6 kids, good for them. And it's the loss, the infertility,
I think we can kind of sum it up, though, if we were to sum up who you are, is you are defined by your family. That would be very relevant. A big part of your life is your family. You've adopted and fostered, and then you adopted the kids that you fostered, but you didn't just adopt easy, cute, blue-eyed little girls running down the street.
Wildly dangerous thing.
You adopted kids with that are have challenges in life, called differently abled is the phrase. I got schooled on Facebook when I said you had disabled children.
I would get schooled if asked in this moment. So
yeah, but you did. You adopted disabled children and took that on, which is something that very few people, like normally it's organizations with 300 staff that take care of kids with disabilities, and you guys are doing it as two young parents. You did that, and that's what's unusual. I think for me, I found that unusual. I'm like, who does that?
I think foolishness and bravery are very close together, right? I think foolishness and bravery run very close, and it's just perspective, where some go, they are a fool, and others go, wow, that's brave, right? And it's like, and you know, you think about, like, for our situation, like when we were first married, the first kind of 5 years, one of my greatest fears, I kept saying to Janine when we were thinking about having kids, is I was like, what if we have a kid with special needs? It's like, that's it. Like, then that is the rest of your life. Like, you cannot get out of that relationship, kind of thing. I was like, you know, we need to be careful, and maybe we need to, and I was just super nervous. And I don't see the lack of irony. Like, now looking at it, it's like, that was my greatest fear, and now it is like my greatest joy, right? One of my greatest fears was like, holy crap, what is this going to look like? But in the end, it's a kid isn't their disabilities, and a person isn't their disabilities. They are who they are. And so we fell in love with this kid. Turns out he has some disabilities. He's got pretty severe cerebral palsy. So it's, I don't know. We definitely didn't go in, like, we're not these champions who are like, we bring us the hardest kid you got. Like, bring him here. Bring him into our home. It was like, yeah, we're really freaking out here. We don't really know, but we're willing. And then that's kind of how our family ended up. And our oldest, Kyle.
And that's funny because he doesn't know that, but we've had conversations back in the tough days trying to get you up, where Dave's like, oh man, that Kyle, eh? And I'm like, I know, what are we going to do with Kyle? We were seriously worried. You were such a handful.
Yeah, okay.
We both feel like parents. So let's introduce Kyle Sampson, because a lot of people know who you are. You've definitely been vocal, but tell us where you were born, raised, and lived, and how you ended up here.
On which playground did you spend most of your days?
I'm Kyle. I was born in Edmonton, actually. Grew up there for a few years. We moved around a bit for my dad's job. Moved to Winnipeg, moved back to Alberta, and then moved to Prince George over 20 years, or about 20 years ago, and spent my prominent years growing up here, you know, elementary school and high school, graduating here, and it was a great experience. Moved away briefly after, went back to Edmonton, did some work there, and then came back to Prince George because this is what felt like home. And I started my career here, went away thinking I could do bigger and better things, and realized actually the big and great things that I want to do are in Prince George. So I came back and wasn't sure if I'd stay here forever, you know, thought maybe 4 or 5 years, and that was in 2013, and obviously still no plans to leave. So
I remember that when you came back, because it's notable, so our listeners understand. When Kyle was a very young kid at 14 years old, I owned a DJ service, and he showed up at my front steps one day applying for a job in a full suit as a 13 or 14-year-old kid, got out of his mom's minivan and dropped his resume on us as we were using pogo sticks in the driveway. It was one of the weirdest, most surreal things that's ever occurred in my life, I think.
Same.
I'll never forget that image of you. We're just bouncing on pogo sticks, and there you are in your suit, but
I just remember the questions getting more and more intense as you guys went. At first you're like, yeah, maybe he'll learn to DJ, but he's not going to know any of the music. And then you asked a couple questions, and I knew the answers. And then both of you and Steve, your business partner, were
jaws dropped.
Okay. And then asked a few more questions. And then a few more questions, like, all right. And within, I think it was a month, I was out doing my own gigs.
Yeah, actually, it was. We talked to you and realized there was something different about you. You could tell there was something different about Kyle, which is something that I think the whole community started to pick up on. Because 27-year-olds don't get elected to city council.
I was 25.
Yeah, that just doesn't happen, right? So what was the difference in Kyle Sampson? And there was just something about the makeup of you that is fundamentally different as a human being. You aged out at 14. You were already a fully grown adult, except in just certain things.
Certain parts of his brain were not fully developed yet.
Yeah.
As with all of us.
And it's
I was 14.
The problem was you were hyper beyond your years, and then still a normal kid ranting and raving, but hyper beyond your years.
I think the DJ years were some of my favorite years looking back at my childhood, which is crazy to think, but growing up, and I was able to learn so much about just having fun. You're going to parties, you're seeing people enjoy themselves, and you're seeing people celebrate some of their best times, birthdays, weddings, Christmas parties, all sorts of different celebrations, anniversaries that you're DJing, and so you're seeing people celebrate. You're having fun, but you're also learning a business and how to present yourself in front of people. And you're going to banquet facilities, and you're dealing with the manager of the facility, and you're 15 years old, and your mom dropped you off with all your equipment, but you're the guy.
You're the work until 1 a.m.
Yeah,
at
exactly.
15.
Yeah.
And it took people a year to learn how to DJ back then. It would take about a year that you would shadow a DJ. It took him a month. Within a month, he was off on his own DJing, and much to my dismay, expecting I've got this employee for years, we're going to make money off him. A month into DJing for me, he had already picked up on the fact, well, if I buy my own system, I can get more money out of Dave, and there started the fight. We fought. We fought, screaming, me screaming, you talking, me screaming.
It's true.
Going, this kid wants every penny from me. And every time I cut you a check, it was like down to the penny.
He thought he had child labor locked down on me. And I was like, no, I'm getting paid just as much as the other DJs.
Oh, it was brutal.
But I remember my first gig, it was actually at the Bon Voyage Banquet Hall with Steve, your partner, and Chris was there as well. And the three of us, and they showed me how to DJ. They made me use the mic. And that was the first gig at the Bon Voyage. It was an anniversary.
Wildly fast learner.
Yeah.
But then like your confidence is what kills me. Because like confidence and competence, right? Like there's many confident people that are wildly incompetent. But you are confident first, and somehow your competence catches up fast, and it's like that's not
exactly
supposed to happen.
it.
Because you get yourself in these situations at 13 and 14, and then you get there because of confidence, but your competence should show everybody, hey, this is just a child. There's a child running this party right now. But nope, the competence just catches up so fast. It's
I remember the nerves some nights. You go to an event and something would happen, anything, and the DJ kind of, you're in charge of the party. Everyone kind of looks to you. Even the banquet facility kind of comes to you for direction on how the party's going to flow, what's going on. I'm 15 years old, and I remember there was a wedding at the Ramada, and there was a full-on brawl that took place at this wedding. Somebody said something to somebody else, and everybody, the bride's parents are coming to me, the banquet manager's coming to me, everyone's coming to me saying, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I'm 15 or 16 years old. It was wild, but it was the confidence thing. You just put on your best hat or an advertised hat, and you
make it up.
And you make it up, and you figure it out, and that's life. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're going to be in a leadership position, you find the answer. You find the answer.
But there are some people who get this thing called like education, right? And then they work on the competence, and then that gains the confidence. But that's been your life. I don't think it's the standard, though.
But I actually have discovered in my adult years, as I've gone out and explored in the world, some of the top financial advisors in the world, former DJs. And in fact, some of the top realtors, DJs. And people who make it into city council at age 25 were DJs, because DJing was a joke of a job, but it taught you one really good thing, communication.
Yeah.
You learned how to talk to every person from every walk of life when they were drunk and sober, and you had to be able to answer situations with violence and overt happiness and
emotion. People are happy and they're sad and they're frustrated and they're drunk and they're all these things, and
you learn to deal with every kind of human instantly, kind of like servers become really experts, A lot of the good servers have that exact same skill. So whatever job you take after that, I thought it was my greatest failure. I was so sad about being a DJ. And then it turned out to be my greatest asset.
Same. I would agree 100%. It was one of my greatest assets in life, and it gave me a lot of my career. And going into radio, I got that job without going to broadcasting school, primarily because I DJ'd. I had the skills, and I was a young guy even when I started in radio. But I don't want to turn this into a
DJ reminiscence
story, and I don't want to turn into a PSA for not going to school. But I will say, the School of Hard Knocks and learning from on the ground and learning as you go, it can be an amazing thing.
Well, how many years of combined post-secondary education are there between the three of us?
Oh,
I have 1 year.
I have 3 years. I went to UMBC, but I wasn't going for a degree.
Just general studies.
I was just going for fun because my mom taught there, and if I didn't go, I was going to lose out on free school.
I don't think we have a master's between the three of us.
I think we have a full degree between the three of
and
us.
I would argue only
Bible
2.5. That's where I met Scott McWalter, my co-host. I knew him we grew up near each other, but he was a little kid. 10 years younger than me. I met him. I went back to university when he was in university
Scott,
getting his
10 years
degree.
Younger than you?
Yeah.
I'm 10 years younger than Dave.
I know. I've aged very well. I look young.
What are you, like 80?
Yeah.
You know, I first met Dave when I was a camper at Ness Lake, and that's how we met. And there's 10 years between us, and there's this great picture, and maybe I'll send it to you to
I have it.
superimpose
Sure
here or
does.
something.
Yeah, he worked for that picture. Not the other
I
one.
wish we could pop that up on the screen. Is that even possible? You look it up.
Give us 5 minutes.
You look it up and pop it up on the screen at some point in time, and we'll all see it. But it's a picture of you guys, and that was actually literally my next question. So you two met at Ness Lake, which I was also an attendee at Ness Lake.
Attendee, a camper.
There's a weird pause there. I was a.
I was trying to think of the word. I didn't know what you call a camper, I guess. You okay. So anyways, you guys met there, though. What was that like? What age were you? And you were...
I would have been like, if I was program directing, I think it was in 2000. That picture's from 2005. So I would have been
Yep.
23.
Yeah, and I would have been 12.
There it is. What a beauty. I think that's.
Yeah.
I think that's 05. You grew into those
man.
ears. Can we just say that?
Yep.
And the mullet on you.
It was a very humid summer.
It's a bit of
apparently.
Jesus flow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Wild.
They said be Christ-like, so I just, I was
And
in.
even then, Kyle Sampson has a radio in his hand for
He
some
took it from me.
advanced form of communication that he would have been planning out and taking control.
It was when we first met. I was obviously a kid, a camper, and so we weren't friends. But looked up to Dave and saw him as this outgoing, communicating, fun guy who ran the camp, and as a young guy as well. I mean, you don't look like you're 25 there, Dave. You look like you're 23. You look like you're 40. But
Yeah, there's a lot
You
going
look
on
younger
there.
now than you did then.
you
Well,
do.
I've thought that too. So like my long hair photos, I'm like, oh my gosh.
yeah, you look about 40. But Dave's 23-year-old guy. Anyways, I kind of looked up to the guy, and then as years went on, I think we actually really kind of became friends through youth group.
Yeah, because we did the camp thing. Kyle was in. Kyle's about people. Camp is like full of good people. That's one thing with camp is it's like a filtered group of humans. And people are like, oh, you always meet great people here. It's like, yeah, because there's an application process to be a human here. Like to be one of the workers, it's like, I mean, to be campers, you can be anybody. But then because you started to come to youth group, and we were youth sponsors. When we first had our first couple of kids, we were bringing them to youth group and passing them around because we had no maternal instincts or parental instincts because they weren't our like natural kids.
Yeah.
But then it was my motorbike. On the drive here, I was like, because we went from youth group, you kind of aged out, you moved to Edmonton, you came back.
It was
And I
weird
was
when I moved
chopping up
away.
bikes.
I remember you, Janine, and I, Dave's amazing wife. We went for dinner at Boston Pizza when I was about to move away. I don't even know if you remember that. And I took you guys for
Wildly.
dinner to say thanks for all the great years of being such good friends and kind of leaders of mine and mentors. And then when I came back, I lived up the street from a mutual friend of ours, actually in your basement. And,
Oh, yeah.
It was in your basement when I moved back.
Yeah.
And down the street, we built motorcycles all winter.
It was
and that's
3 doors down.
Yeah.
Not just a band reference, but I had my motorbike in there and we hardtailed it
Yeah.
into a bobber.
That was 2013.
That was good times.
That does broach something that I've recently just started really discussing and pointing out, and it's actually something that I had brought up with Selin. And it's that it actually with Selin, I hadn't really thought about how much I resonate with his attitude about this. But you hit a point in life where all of a sudden you realize I just don't care how old someone is. I care that they have common interests, common values. And like I go for dinner now with a 65-year-old woman named Carrie, and me and her go for dinner all the time, and she's genuinely my friend.
That's nice of her to hang out with an older guy like you.
Yeah, I know, right? She's taking mercy on me. And then I've got younger friends like Kyle, and I just realized that, and I thought that with you guys too.
Well, I think the beauty of it is when you can realize, when you spend time with a friend and you don't even think about it. It doesn't even come to mind. Selin's one of my best friends as well. You two are some of my best friends, and it doesn't even come to mind. It's funny. I kind of laugh when I do think Dave's 10 years older.
You think I'm 38. You think I'm 48. He said it like 3 times in the last month. Kyle says I'm 38, but he's not. He's 28. And he says, and you're 48. And it's like, what are you talking about?
It's just this weird,
I didn't actually realize I'm almost 20 years older than you.
Yeah.
If you had have asked me, I would have said I'm about 10 or 11 years older than you in my head.
Which makes the pogo sticking that much better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's weird. I honestly didn't know that. I would not have said that. If someone asked me to answer quickly, I would have
How
said
old
I'm
are you
10 or
right
11.
now?
I'm 45.
Yeah, so
just
you-
about
yeah.
46.
and beyond that, in good friendships and stuff, the amazing thing is how it kind of integrates with like family and stuff. My parents, I think every time I talk to them, still not every time, I talk to them almost every day, they ask about you, Dave, and you, and Selin, and all my friends. And my friends have connections with my family, even though they don't know each other that well. You bring them into your lives. I mean, Dave's family, his kids, his wife, they're part of my life. I see them all the time. Janine's my friend. We go on dates together.
They've been to more concerts together than I have been.
Yeah.
You want to go to figure skating, Dave? No.
But Janine wanted to.
Janine wanted to. Yeah.
You invite people to weird stuff. The stuff you will do ranges from figure skating to a play to
Dubai.
Let's go to Dubai and watch Kiss. And I was like, what?
Did you go?
I was telling, and I almost went to Russia to see Kiss.
Yeah, COVID.
The places you'll go.
Oh yeah. Oh, the New Year's.
Yeah, the New Year's show.
We were dealing with COVID. I invited him to come to Belize on a whim 2 weeks ago. He didn't come though.
Couldn't get the time off, but that's the kind of things that make friendship exciting, and you totally phase out the fact that there's an age difference or anything else. You just have common interests and you have fun together. That's
I've only got a couple hard things to discuss today, and I've already kind of thought about it. We're not going to talk about city stuff. You're a city councilor. I don't think we mentioned that in the podcast. Yeah, we did.
I didn't bring my city hat. I brought my Caribou Rocks the North hat, my Rooftop Rock hat, my Best Damn Music Festival hat, but I didn't bring the city one. So I mean,
we're going to leave your city hat off, but we are going to. The first thing we're going to discuss with you is probably the only major controversy that's happened with Nestle Bible Camp in the whole history of Prince George. Yeah. Yes, you guys had a tough time for a short period of time when there was accusations about Christianity and discrimination, not allowing people in, and it kind of blew up on social media. Homosexuality, I think, was the issue. Maybe it was. Couldn't remember specifically.
The LGBTQ community just wanted to know where we stood on things, and it's not like one unified community. It's like no community, right? You could say like the church, and you don't mean like everybody who says they're a Christian. They're not all coming from the same place.
Yeah.
And so there was questions asked, and the school district, I think, did a good job of asking those questions as well to defend their students and defend kind of the places that they rent and things like that. And so they entered a process with us as well. And
so it was a huge thing in the community, though. It was a big blow up, lots of emotion, and a lot of assumptions that you guys were going to answer, like you would kind of see in the media with right-wing conservative Christian groups in the States, where they would take a stand and go, like Westboro Baptist. Yeah. That was legit the assumption that you guys are going to answer that way. I thought you dealt with it beautifully. But what was the end result of that? Did it just disappear? Like you basically came out and said, look, everybody's welcome to camp here?
Yeah, no, it's the thing of like, one thing is I don't understand who keeps giving like Westboro Baptist the microphone to represent Christianity. Like their church is only about 200 people, right? There are monster churches, like 20,000 people that are very far away, but obviously somebody needs to sell ratings, and the way to do that is have Westboro Baptist on. And it's nuts, because they're holding up signs that say like God hates fags. And it's like that's who you're going to hand the microphone to. Yeah. And they're like, okay, we're going to have a little discussion about Christianity here. All right, Westboro Baptist, you're going to represent every Christian in America. It's like, holy cow. Like, they don't need the help. Like faith in the States is odd enough as it is, but to hand them the mic was like just jet fuel. So I think there was an expectation that, there was some assumption, some expectation that Ness Lake hated the LGBTQ community. And the confusion from because I remember that teen camp that year, we had these teen campers already registered before that kind of controversy came out. And these teen campers showed up to our camp, and they were like, has something changed here? And they're like, I've told you I was gay for 3 years, and you guys have never treated me poorly. You've told me like if you want to work here, then you need to be like a practicing Christian. But they said otherwise, you've always treated me well. You've understood. They're like, is something different? We're like, no, nothing is different. It's just people who aren't familiar with who we are wondering, and they want to make sure that this place is safe and that it's good. And because it was like Janine and I, we were feeling that was rough. But like we expected to come home to vandalism, we expected to come home to violence. The outrage was there, but it's like my name got pushed across the media as like Dave the Bigot, and it was like, oh, it's a new one for me. Like,
what's funny is the people who knew you, like I knew you and Kyle knew you, I was like, even if that was Ness Lake's stance, I didn't believe that would be Dave Horton's stance. As a human being, you've always just come across as really goofy, authentic, lovable person. Just loves to laugh and
loves people.
Keep life going. Well, that's why, and we'll talk about this in a moment. I think we'll move into that. You've spent the last couple of years just trying to make community better for everyone, right? That's been your focus. But I knew that. But I had to bring that up Because it's literally probably the only major controversy we've seen.
And yet you asked about the resolve, and I didn't answer it. The resolve was like the school district sat us down and talked with us one-on-one. They didn't just read the things that are written. Because a lot of the stuff that was written, we were reading it and we were like, we sent you a press release and this is what you chose?
Well,
and it was like, a lot of what we found is a lot of people were just trying to, they have to sell their format. They have to sell the thing they're writing in. And so we would send these things and they would choose very specifically very short parts of it, and we're like, wow, like the heart of what we wrote is gone. So we're owned by One Hope Canada, and it was kind of a One Hope Canada problem. It wasn't actually a Nest Lake problem. It's a One Hope Canada problem. That's who owns us and operates us. I work for One Hope Canada National at Nest Lake kind of thing. And we sat in the school district's office and we sat kind of with the concerned parties and had those conversations and showed them our policies. One Hope Canada did some changing, but that's where it landed. Was in like closed, quiet rooms kind of thing with reasonable discussions.
And to be fair, I think all three of us know the experience of, things that are said that miss parts of the story that are, sensationalized and everything else. And we all three of us can say we've experienced something like that, and it sucks. It sucks to be on the receiving end of a story that's missing this much of the fact and took this little, piece over here, right?
Well, let's flip now. And we're going to go through the hardest controversy around you that's happened recently that people would remember, because once there should be relevant bits that we can use as tidbits to sell people on why they should listen to this. And now we're going to hear a really articulate answer on what the hell happened with the Best Damn Music Festival, which should have been called the Best Non-Music Festival. I could have thought of something better. I should have practiced that.
It makes it sound like it turned into like a drime
so what
festival
happened
or
with
like
that?
an art festival of some sort.
So much happened with that, and I'll sum it up before I explain. I'll sum it up in that really I'd say the 5-6 days before we pulled the plug, 5-6 days before we pulled the plug, and then the 5-6 days after we pulled the plug were easily the hardest 10 to 12 days of my life, by far. I mean, to expand on it a bit, I mean, we waited. The purpose of it. The purpose of the Best Damn Music Festival was to bring something huge, something different, and something exciting to Prince George and the North after such a long time of nothing. COVID made sure nothing happened.
No.
So the whole purpose of the music festival was just to have some fun, bring people together, give us a great outlet, and bring something of serious note in the entertainment world to Prince George. Put us on the map a little bit, but also just give people the opportunity they deserve to let loose.
Get out of the house.
Yeah. So we waited as long as we could. I started planning this a year and a half ago. As soon as the pandemic hit, okay, as soon as this is done, we should have some sort of concert or party. Not realizing how long it was going to be. So it was a little bit here, a little bit there. But then when we saw the end of the light at the end of the tunnel, we went, okay, let's ramp this up. And we being, I mean, primarily me, and then people like Dave and people like my friend Chris and a few others who are really behind the scenes on all these events. And ramp this up, and we're hearing Phase 4 is coming September. And so we planned it to be good to go with Phase 3, knowing that will be happening during the Phase 4 process. But let's make sure, just in case it doesn't, it gets bumped, we're ready to go and we're safe in the Phase 3 zone. So we planned it as late as we could, knowing as much as we could in consultation with Northern Health and experts and all sorts of other people, trying to make sure that we had all of our ducks in a row. And so we did. We planned it late, and we announced it as late as we could. We announced it on August 5th. And that was, just over a month out from the event. You don't announce music festivals a month out, ever.
Yeah.
This is crunch time. So we did our due diligence. We did everything we could to make sure it was as safe as possible and as sure as possible, a sure thing as possible. Anyways, over the next month, everything was ramping up well. Ticket sales went really great off the hop, and just like any event, you see the taper for a bit, but when it's a month out, you see those ebbs and flows a lot tighter and quicker. So we saw the dip, and then we saw the climb again, and we're seeing the festival really become successful. And then the announcement came with the changes, in the 2 or 3 days before the firm announcement, the hate mail, death threats, all sorts of stuff you're putting people in health in the wrong space. You're giving people an opportunity to get sick. You're a menace to public health. You're all of these things.
A lot of it's people venting their concern, but also putting their assumptions in your head of like, oh, he's doing this because he doesn't value safety, because he doesn't think COVID's a problem. And there was a from what you were describing to me, there was a lot of people like throwing their assumptions, like they were doing all the thinking for you, and then writing you an email about everything you were thinking. And it was like, that's all you.
Absolutely.
I think one thing we should clarify is, like, when you did Candy Cruise, during the pandemic, first of all, the two of you would spearhead a lot, but there's nothing you do rarely without Kyle being
and
there
vice
and
versa.
helping.
And vice versa.
And I certainly tried to jump in and help as much as I could amongst a whole bunch of other business people in Prince George when you did these events, like the Candy Cruise, which was giving kids something to do during the pandemic to replace the fact that you couldn't trick or treat. And you didn't make any money doing anything you did, right? Like, just so people
In
understand.
fact, you spend money.
Yeah.
So now here's the next thing, though. A lot of people with Rooftop Rock assumed that you're trying to cash in and make money, because we've had some other festivals that failed where the people were taking a paycheck. How much did you get paid as an organizer of it out of your money from your sponsors? Like, were you drawing pay? And all your other events, were you doing it and taking compensation?
No. So I can tell you, Rooftop Rock ties well, actually. I'll give you the long story short. Rooftop Rock started from a conversation with Selin and I, and a different conversation with Dave and I. Dave was leading it. I was trying to support him as much as I could, do some drive-in events, different movies and games and all sorts of different stuff, the trivia. And we had laughed and thought, wow, a concert would be awesome, a drive-in concert. Selin and I were talking one day about things, and that's how we actually planned PG Live together. Selin and I, at the same time, thought, let's stick a band on a roof, and then together,
If only we knew someone with an FM transmitter.
yeah, drive-in concert, band on a roof, it all kind of. So the three of us put together this idea for Rooftop Rock, planned it, canceled, 24 hours out because of Dr. Henry's orders, and we move on. This past year, brought it back to life. Didn't do it on a roof. We needed more space.
But it's worth saying that Rooftop Rock was going to be one of the, if not the biggest, one of the biggest drive-in events in North America.
It was.
Because we measured out all the parking, and and it's a hoot. During the pandemic, a bunch of this was like, this gives us something to do. And so we measured the parking. It's 14.5 acres of just parking, not roads. And there was over 1,000 cars planned to be there at Rooftop Rock. Like, it was not going to be a little
Spacious,
thing.
and we had the whole thing planned to have a parking space between every car. We had road crews on board and everybody. It was very well planned. It was going to be very safe. Unfortunately, the order came out and it wasn't scalable. It was 50 cars, no matter your lot size. So 50 cars for a quarter of an acre, or 50 cars for 14 acres. It was 50 cars.
You know what my big idea was? Because it got shot down. 50 vehicles, that's the maximum. That's not my internal voice for Bonnie Henry, but it could be 50 vehicles. I was like, what 50 vehicles could also be is 50 school buses.
Oh, yeah.
And the gathering limit was 50 people.
So I was like, you could put 50 people. I was like, you could have 2,500 people.
Oh,
but then there was this
man.
moment of like, that doesn't feel like we're trying to like meet or exceed the spirit.
That's where you end up with where I talked to Kyle extensively over those couple days. I was away traveling at the time, and I was making calls to him saying, are you okay? Because I didn't want my friend to jump off a roof.
Oh, with this, yeah, absolutely.
And I was talking to him, and I remember vividly the words coming out of your mouth were, even if I could get away with it, because you could have technically done the event.
Yep.
But the implication was that if something goes bad, if we end up with more of an outbreak, you are going to be vilified.
Well, there's more to it. Technically, yes. Technically, we were not legally shut down in advance of the event. But we were told by health officials that once the event starts, it will be shut down because it's unable to be compliant. So it would have cost, me and my partners have already lost beyond thousands of dollars on this. If we started the event, you lose twice as much. Once you start, everything doubles. You're paying your bands, they're all there, everything else. And so we mitigated our losses by 50%, but still tens of thousands of dollars lost. But we could go, but as soon as it started, that's when they would have declared us as non-compliant. People had to physically distance who did not live together. People had to wear masks. There no congregating at food and beverage lineups. All sorts of different rules that it just wasn't worth the risk. And if it was truly that unsafe, we saw Wave 4 come in like like crazy. But we don't want to be part of that either. We want to make sure we're participating in good public safety. I will add, though, I didn't answer making any money. Absolutely not. And so when we fast forward and come to this Rooftop Rock was also planned quite late, being compliant with Phase 3, and the whole purpose was to be an icebreaker for the community, to give every event promoter in town, not just myself trying to do the Best Damn Music Festival, but everybody a chance to have the ice broken. Giving people a chance to feel like there's no skin in the game. I can show up, and if I'm not feeling too comfortable, well, I didn't pay money to be there, so I can leave. I can space out. I can pack in. I can have food and support all these businesses, and then all the suppliers, the food trucks, the vendors, and the production company, Blake Productions, all these people hadn't had work in 2 years. They needed to dust off their stuff as well. So the whole thing was planned as an icebreaker. Long story short, we raised over $23,000 for the charity. I spent almost $10,000 of my own money because it was designed to be an icebreaker for this event, which would have brought us to zero, break even, and we, in the end we lose money. But no,
we had fun.
We had a ton of fun, and we made $0.
$10,000 of Kyle's money fun. Woo!
Yeah. You know what? I've done multiple events over the years where I lost money and didn't regret it. I don't mind spending money for those kinds of experiences. You can spend $10,000 going on a vacation to Hawaii just as easily and not have given your community something good. So there's value in that. It's only when it gets shut down and you've spent money that then you didn't get that reward, because I don't think anybody could ever understand the high you get when you throw an event and it's successful. That sense of satisfaction of knowing what you did for people is like, it must be how comedians would feel if they rocked a stadium and made everybody laugh, type of thing.
I'm fortunate. I've got friends like Dave, Chris, I mentioned, Maggie, Jen, James, all these people who are our core team for every event that I do, or we do as a group. Dave has leads the charge on Candy Cruise or other events, and the same kind of team comes together and supports it. And we have this core group who, it's fun. We build an event that the community gets to enjoy, that people get to have build memories that have fun, businesses get to be a part of and benefit by it, and all these great things. And then we had fun. A group of friends had a great time.
That's the nice thing with it, is like there's not like it's not, there's not a, no one's trying to bump each other out. There's not a lot of politics or drama. There's zero politics, and everyone's got all their cards open.
Yeah.
Which is saying something for some of those guys.
Well, we all bring different skill sets too.
Yeah, and there's no power struggle when we on these events. That's part of what we like, the taste we got for Caribou Rocks and North. And at Caribou Rocks and North, it's like I'm just a guy who's there. I'm not I don't have a portfolio because I don't have the time in the summer. But to take part in that and just seeing they're not jostling for power here. They're not,
because you know what the difference is. It's the difference between doing an event with people who are doing it for love of being an entertainer and people who are doing it for financial reasons.
Totally.
And if you work with people who love entertainment, there is no power because everyone has the exact same goal.
That's right.
It's when you mix that someone's out there to pay their mortgage, then it changes everything for them. When I was involved in the rave era, when we would provide equipment to these people throwing raves, and they were all like, peace, love, unity, respect. We're all here for hugs. And I was like, no, I'm here because I have a mortgage payment due on the 1st, and I need my rent on this equipment. They're like, we'll cover it later. It's okay. I'm like, it's not okay. So, as someone who doesn't care if I make money on an event, I do it for love now, the same reason you do it. But there was a time, and that's the difference.
Well,
always work with people who have that.
There's
same
a time,
goal.
and I have to say, I don't knock those people who are in it to make money. And certainly, if we could have made money on the Best Damn Music Festival, that would have been awesome. Break even was the goal. Making money would have been amazing. You can do more things with it, though. But it's when you can get to that point in life. I mean, you already said DJing. I used to fight you for every penny. I needed to pay rent. I needed to feed myself. Working at the radio station, paid diddly squat. I needed to eat. And so then it was important. But now, I have a job that pays my bills. If I can do an event, I don't need to make money off of it. The purpose of the event is to give something back, to do something fun. And if it can make money, then I can reinvest that into something else that's awesome and fun. That's the whole purpose.
like retirement.
Or an event.
Well, it's the same reason why you end up dragging people like Selin into it, right? And you have these other friends who participate.
Well, he gets involved for the same reasons.
Exactly. I highly doubt Selin's out there going, how much are we going to make? Show me the bottom line. What's my check? I got rent to cover.
He likes to see
These are
smiling
cash-
faces.
Yeah, these are cash burner events. These are like, there's a pile of money and it's on fire. But everyone's dancing around the fire, having a good time.
And then even when you do make
Right,
money, you're like, let's give it to a charity. Who are we going to help? First question,
That's
I
the
called
thing.
Kyle. I'm like, right now I'm at the point in life where so many people are coming to me because every time I get asked to make a post for someone, because people want me to post it so that they can get recognition on their cause, because people are used to seeing my name
Attached to a
tied
cause.
to posts. So they read my posts more. I get a bit more of engagement than some others. But what that does is every time I post a successful thing where we help this girl with cancer or we do this, it leads to 5 more messages in my inbox. So I'm like, the only way out of this for me, without having to just say no to people who are like, hey, my husband's dying, I need some cash, And saying no is the most heart-wrenching, heartbreaking feeling in the world when you have to tell someone no who's just said, my husband's dying, can you help? And I'm like, So I'm like, I got to figure out a way to solve this problem without saying no, or without just going and turtling and hiding, which is what a lot of people with money do. They have to eliminate being seen in the public to avoid that. And I've talked to so many friends with money.
Yeah.
That's the problem. If you give, you open the door to having to keep giving.
So the solution, though, is like we talked about, is finding a way to fundraise through
these events.
Events.
Yeah, and I actually talked to Glenn Mickelson, and
who's an amazing human being, amazing event
so
promoter.
Glad the city brought him back as soon as they could, but an amazing human being. And he asked me out, and we're coming up with a plan, which is going to tie into the next question, where Glenn's like, dude, I mentioned this to him, I've got to come up with the seed money. I need 30 grand to stick in an account. So anytime we get a message and someone gives money, I can go, here's $500. And basically create a little mini Prince George not-for-profit that just can hand some money out for when these situations happen on social media, which is tied to us. And we have this huge network of friends who are really good at this stuff. Let's throw an event and let's park the money in an account, be able to say yes to people.
I mean, a perfect example of that is Rooftop Rock. I mean, that event was really a nothing event. There's no purpose. It's not Canada Day. It's not, it's something that we're celebrating. It's literally local businesses with their vendor booths. It's food trucks. It's local bands. It's, the Railway Museum, all these different things that just make a cool space for people to come down on. And we raised $23,000.
The event was a venue. Like, that's the thing. Like, you took a venue, this parking lot, ran an event, and the point of the event was, let's just broke up the large venue into smaller venues for entertainment, jets, because jets is a normal thing to get.
Yes,
I mean, everyone just gets jets, right?
My buddy's a fighter pilot. Made it happen. We got the flyby. Like, it's just cool how you can.
I was out of town for that one too. Every time Kyle throws an event, there's one thing guaranteed. I'll have a trip planned.
Every time. But I will say that event raised $23,000, but the costs were close to $50,000, and we couldn't have had, the event, which was amazing, without the support of sponsors. Cell's another one. We had Fortis, Brink. We had all these Save on Foods. A number of sponsors come on board.
I gave $20.
And they came on board. They fund this event. The community gets a great time. The community in turn donates some money for thanks for the great time. And we did something cool for the Wheeling Warriors of the North, which was a significant amount of money for them this year.
So when do we think events are going to happen as a collective group? We're sitting here desperate. I mean, I tried to throw a Halloween event too, much smaller than your Rooftop Rock, but 3 rooms, 3 parties, whole prestige hotel. Sold the VIP lounge out in 2 hours after I put tickets on sales. The VIP was sold out in 2 hours.
There's a lot of very important people in this town.
And the problem was I sold it out. I made the biggest mistake ever in an event. Instead of selling the tickets at the front counter of the Prestige, I said, you can e-transfer me. It's no problem. Events will be for sure good to go back to over. So guess what I had to spend 2 days doing? Returning e-transfers. 150 e-transfers I had to return.
I don't
had to
think
get
anybody saw
everyone's
that
email.
coming. Nobody saw it coming. I mean,
at what point do you just get a wad of cash and say, I will be in the parking lot, and then...
Because that looks good.
So what's our answer? What's going to happen? What do you have planned right now for next events?
So the Best Damn Music Festival has been postponed. It's not canceled. It's next August. I'm very optimistic that we're going to be able to go. We had a huge, massive financial setback, and we're working on that. We're negotiating still with some of our artists. We're going to bring on some new artists on board for those who couldn't make it next summer. So that's still in the works. And the one thing that I could say is, support. Not just that event, any event that comes out, go out and support it, because they're going to need your help. Everybody's been financially hit, and they're going to need your support and your help to get at least back to zero, and maybe even make a little bit. If we can make some money with this, we can do more with it. It's not about profiting, it's about being able to do more beyond that. But it's when you break the bank, lose everything, that you go, well, how, it makes it that much harder to do the next fun, exciting thing.
I think that's the critical statement you made there, and we need to reiterate that for anybody who's still listening 40 minutes in or 50 minutes in, is that if you made money, it wouldn't be a paycheck, it would be the opportunity to have the seed money for the next thing you do.
Totally.
Your objective isn't to make your living doing this right now.
I have a day job, and if I can spend my evenings and weekends doing something else...
You have a day job, and then you have an evening job as well, and then you have this.
And then I have a weekend job,
yeah exactly.
Yeah.
So, but if you can spend some of your free time doing these kind of things, and like I said, you do them with friends, and you're hanging out. Dave and I could hang out on the couch and play video games or something like that, or we could hang out in a parking lot measuring the spaces to find out exactly how much space between cars. Either way, we have the same fun time together. We're just doing something productive.
During COVID, it was like everybody has the same amount of time, and now everybody was given a blank slate for their time, and everybody all of a sudden had every evening open, but it was just people were told like the narrative of what they were going to do during that time, and they all just ate it, and they were like, I'm just going to sit here and do nothing.
You know what was unique, actually? How many people didn't see friends for so long during the pandemic because you couldn't. You got to stay in. You can't go to other people's houses. Dave and I found a way to make it work that was still COVID safe and compliant. We hung out in parking lots. We went out and measured for Candy Cruise. We went out
radios.
We set the whole thing up.
I took my radio system from camp, and I was like, because I was off work, I was like, he had a radio in his house. I had a radio, like walkie-talkies, and we would like drive in different vehicles because it was like, this is what we make it like. And time at the end of the day, you spent your time, or you whatever it is, right? You buried it in the ground, you held on to it, or you invested it. And for us, it was like we hung out more, and the memories are always better. Doing stupid crap is always more fun.
Yeah, always more fun.
Like of the pandemic, the one night at Canadian Tire parking lot with a big 100-meter measuring tape and like a rangefinder, and it's like 2 a.m, 3 a.m, and we're done.
Because that's when we have time. I've done my job and he's done his.
And it was like, it wasn't great. That was a lot of work, but it was. That's what I remember. Great. I don't remember that I had nights where I stayed at home playing video games, but I don't remember.
How did Ness Lake survive? Like, how did it come out of it?
It's still like the wound is still there. That's the thing. When you ask like when are events going to open, it's whenever they're said that they can be open. Because even right now, like for Halloween, you couldn't run Candy Cruise this year. You couldn't run. It looked like you could through September and through the first part of October, but by the end, it was like, no, you can't. Like you could not do that.
The restrictions were even more harsh this year. You're right.
Yeah. Well, even like Christmas last year, we ran like free drive-in movies, right? Like come and watch free drive-in movies. And this year, like everybody has to be vaccine checked that's in a car.
It makes it impossible.
And so the golden moment to serve and to give and to gather safely was there, and now it's gone. And now it's in this era of like division, this wild division.
Mm-hmm.
And
so true.
Things will open when they open, but people will gather when they can start to unify again. And it's the thing. Things will, like business will run as soon as it's allowed to, but real gatherings, real meaningful gatherings will start to happen once people decide to start to work together again. And it's a difference between those two things.
Noticing the difference when you go out. I walked into the Westwood pub, and you will notice that their entire clientele is like 70 years old. It's retirees right now.
Yeah. Yep.
All their younger people, they had kind of a redneck crowd. That's the crowd that doesn't want to be vaccinated. So it's funny walking in there. It's not any of the people I've seen in there for 20 years. It's a completely different room of people who are there simply because of this divisiveness, division, and you have to wonder what'll happen with that.
People need an event to be mad at though first. Like everyone's trying to vent what they believe, what they think, how they feel, and they're just doing it into the abyss of social media. They're just screaming into the abyss, this is what I think! And it's like, no one cares! But the first event needs to happen, and then everyone needs to choose to not show up because they're mad that the vaccine passport is gone, or whatever it is. They need that one thing to be mad at, and and it's like, just do something free then.
So who's going to do the first event? Yeah, it has to be something free. We need to find really good sponsors.
Rooftop Rock, that was it. And it wasn't vax required at the time. That wasn't a requirement.
That was the thing. It was the day before the vaccine passport was brought in.
Does create a few challenges for us, though.
I
think we have to be careful, whoever plans that next event, because I obviously have a few things that I wanted to do too, and talked with Kyle about coming on board. I did not want to throw events. I had spent 20 years doing them. I was done. Give me a break from it. Now, man, what I wouldn't pay to spend time measuring a parking lot.
And all the
time I would put into it for free right now, because I just so badly miss that giving to people that joy.
I want to emphasize that. We said we went out and measured a parking lot. I want to emphasize just how ridiculous it was. We didn't measure one. Dave and I measured probably 90% of the large parking lots in Prince George. We went
without their permission.
Rangefinders and measuring tapes at like 2 a.m. when nobody's there to measure them, to find out where can we do drive-in events. Who can handle 50 cars spaced out? Who can handle 500 cars spaced out? And then so we measured, I don't know how many parking lots at 2 a.m. A lot, but it was it was trying to find space that people can gather. Where can people come together in some weird way, whether you're in your car honking for trivia answers, or when Dave's doing a drive-in, or whether you're watching a movie or watching a concert, or there's food trucks, whatever it may be. But it is what you make of it, and you can come next time we measure a parking lot.
I'll be there. I'm going to do some events again for the next couple of years. Not for financial reasons. I don't need to. My company's doing just fine.
To bring people out of that headspace.
I deeply miss, at the core of myself, I deeply miss that thing that used to be giving people entertainment. And
DJing.
Well, and it's not just DJing though. I also liked throwing events.
Totally.
We did some really fun events for teenagers at the CN Center. We used to throw some wicked parties for teenagers.
The teen dances at CN Center. I went to them as a kid, and then I DJ'd them as I got older.
Remember the white party we threw for teenagers? We had every kid just wore solid white, and we got every black light in northern BC, and that room looked so crazy. You couldn't have believed that it was just...
Black light radiation is still coming down.
Yeah.
On that bit, the levels
Those
are
kids
still
are
unsafe.
permanently tanned. It's wild.
And what's wild is there's a whole generation of kids who don't know what a teen dance is.
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute. There's a whole generation.
We had 1,600 kids in the CN Center partying. It was so cool.
Yeah,
it was
cool. Wild fun to give them that. And there's a whole generation that have completely missed this. So I was talking to Glenn Mickelson about that too. And I'm like, I think what we need to do is throw a retro video dance for adults. Friday night
we
teenagers.
Talked about this about a year ago.
Saturday night adults, 2 nights. And Glenn, he misses it so bad. He's like, dude, I will make this cost possible.
You know who I'll give credit to on that was our friend Maggie. Her and I, she used to work with me, and she just suggested, I don't know, about a year ago, she goes, hey, teen dances were so fun at the CN Center, I think they should come back. And we called you, she was on the phone, or you were on the phone with her, she was in the car, and you and I talked about it, and yeah.
If we're going to make it happen. When we can get through this and sort out that events won't be canceled, we're going to make that happen. I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions about the people. We always ask a couple questions in this podcast about favorite things. So first question I'm going to ask each of you, favorite couple things about Prince George. Give me a couple things you just love about Prince George. What would be the most defining things to you?
It changed the willingness for people to jump on board behind a cause. That's something that I love from the last 2 years. Like Candy Cruise, when you posted and said, anybody want to run Halloween 2.0? And then just this flood of businesses I'd never heard of. They didn't know me, I didn't know them, and there was a trust. Mm-hmm. So it was like trust and support. That was something that was like, oh my gosh, that killed me.
Yeah, and mine's the same but different. The community coming together. The community will support anything and everything. This community is remarkable, and it's the businesses or it's the people. They come out, they support. If there's a call, people will really get behind it and support. It's like that small town mentality. It's like we have 500 people, but really we have 80,000. But somehow it still feels like there's 500. You go somewhere, you see somebody they're helping somebody else they're saying, hey, have you heard of this cause? And you're going, no, I didn't, but I'm in. And it's just that sense of community.
Yeah.
That's the number one.
Favorite person in Prince George?
Favorite person in Prince George? I don't know.
I know you're going to say your wife. Don't say your wife. Anybody but your wife.
But there's no, honestly, I don't know. People have attached a lot of credit to my name from events and stuff that I put on over the last year. And it's like, but really? Really was I? We've got 6 kids. We had 8 kids over the pandemic in our house. And it's like, really? Okay. So who suffered the most there? Who gave the most?
Fine, you can say Janine.
Yes.
Janine.
Class. What a Janine. Getting her in the conversation.
Favorite person in Prince George?
I don't have one, and I know that sounds like a cop-out.
I'm right here, you piece of garbage.
But I was going to say...
I'm right here. It's obvious that I'm not going to say you.
It is pretty wild. 3 of my favorite people are right here, Sel and Dave and Dave. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. It's genuine. I can call any one of you for anything, anytime, and you're there, and you support, and you got my back, and same for you to me. If you don't think that, then you can. But genuinely, and I wouldn't pick one of you over the other. You're 3 of my best friends.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Resonate that.
Best friends.
Yeah, sanitize.
It's called sanitizing.
We touched during COVID. Okay, last question for this podcast episode. Last question is, if you could meet any Canadian, living or dead, and have a conversation with them, what Canadian would it be?
Jim Carrey. I've always wanted to.
Is he Canadian? Oh, he is.
Is he Canadian? This is over, and we're done here. Your podcast is called. But you don't even know who the Canadians are. Jim Carrey's very Canadian.
I like Jim Carrey. He's great. I forgot he was Canadian. Genuinely, I actually forgot that.
And
now that you say
He
it, I'm
sounds
like, oh, yeah,
very
right, he is.
Californian now. I just want to meet him and be like, who is he? Just one-on-one, and not just like the
Powerful story behind him too, right? Has dealt with someone who's wildly wealthy, and he has spent most of his adult life dealing with deep, dark depression. And he's considered one of the funniest humans on the planet, and he has dealt with depression and battled it his entire life. So he would be a fascinating story. I'm generally not in awe of famous people for being famous. I find that kind of gross. I'm like, you're just a person. You're a bag of meat, and I'm a bag of meat. What makes you special? Jim Carrey, I agree with you. I'd love to be able to talk to him because he's led a challenging
there's a
life.
lot more going on than screen life kind
So
of thing.
to be able to talk to him like this would be incredible. Yeah, Kyle.
Make it happen, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bring him on the podcast.
I'm going to make that happen.
If you get him on the podcast, Dave's going to be there, okay?
You know, you never know when you just ask someone to be on the podcast. That's how we got Rick Hansen.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Scott's hard work, but we asked and it happened, which was a dream for both of us. Like, that was a moment that I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget because that man is a frickin' beast. Like, that is a wildly strong human being as a normal guy. He's a normal dude who just did abnormal things. But talking to him, he's a normal guy. You could tell he'd get temperamental and tell you to shut the F up, you know, but changes the world just because he's like, I can and I will. I'm like, ugh.
It's pretty amazing.
That human I respect a lot.
It's amazing.
Who are you going to pick?
You know, I don't idolize people, and I think that's one of the reasons why I have enjoyed and been lucky enough to be part of the career I've had, you know, working with celebrities and stuff, and they're just people. So I don't have somebody who I'm like, oh, that's my like Canadian idol who I want to meet. But it's funny, as soon as you said it, Mike Myers is who came to mind. And the reason for that, is I dreamt of meeting Mike Myers for years as a kid. Like, that's what I wanted more than anything. And I wrote to Oprah because my mom watched Oprah, and she would let kids meet celebrities. And I wrote to Oprah, I don't know, probably 10 dozen times, you know, hoping
Wearing his little suit in his room.
Yeah.
Dearest Oprah.
Dearest Oprah.
I can see that too. Sitting outside of Mike Myers' house in his suit, sitting at the gate.
Sign.
Hello, sir.
But my mom would watch it every day, and I'd be like, and I wanted to meet him, and so I'd be like, you know what? I see her introduce kids to their idols and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to meet so I wrote to her anyway. She never made it happen. Oprah, but
Classic Oprah. Classic.
Yeah. But the first person that came to mind is Mike Myers, and I don't have a lot of great reasons. I just think he's a fascinating human being, and so I'd love to meet him.
That's wild. Well, guys, that for me was a hugely fun conversation, and I'm deeply appreciative you guys came. I know you were both like, weird podcast, but
well, it's funny, I don't know why, but both Dave and I were so like, well, why would we do it together? We're different people, but at the same time it's like,
it's the same person.
Why would you? No, we discussed that. You could do a full episode with you and everything you did, absolutely. It simply came down to, would the conversation be fun? Because the podcast is essentially just having a conversation with friends.
It's a good group of people.
And I knew that we had all these similarities, and the common bond would make too good of a conversation, where otherwise we'd be sitting here talking about you and Selin, and then I'd be sitting here with you talking about him. And let's just all get together and agree to talk about Selin.
Who we all love.
That's how it works, right? It is, yeah. It's funny how all these people are interconnected in this community, and you end up, when you meet people, like when I met Selin and got to talk to him, and I'm like, and you realize, oh, the brain's the same as this human being that I've known, and the methodology and everything they want to do in their dreams, and I'm like, there is just a commonality in people who have that objective, and that's my new people.
Dave often refers to himself as just a dude, not a professional.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I think, it's kind of like these kind of sit downs where you forget about the cameras and everything, or you just hang out and that's all of us. We're just a dude, not a professional. Like, I'm just a guy. When we go measure parking lots at 2 a.m., I'm pretty sure that's not what people dream about at night when they're thinking, what is my city councilor doing right now? measuring a parking lot. No, like, we're just guys. We just do stuff.
That is no different than when I get little old ladies. I get these little old ladies who come up to me and they're like, David Mathis, you are such a nice guy. You are so good in the community. And that's how my friends react every time. We started this podcast. The first thing Selin did, he looked at me and he's like, Dave. It's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, that's how everybody who's friends with me sees me in real life. But these people on social media see you and they're like, oh, you're such a nice guy.
Well, all of our friends have similarities. We can agree Dave's like the nicest guy, but just a dude. You are the nicest guy, but so brash on the outside. So it's hilarious. People are like, oh, Dave, he's so rough around. You're like one of the nicest guys I know, most giving, charitable, kind human beings. But, what people see, they take for face value.
My social media is not me. My social media is not me.
Same.
I have a whole other side that's rude and loud and way too vocal and says inappropriate things.
That's his Instagram account. His Facebook, his Instagram, that's where he gets real.
Yeah. I think that's all of it. Your social media should be an extension of who you are. It shouldn't be fake by any means. It's something I learned in radio. When you go on the radio, if you had a bad day, you don't go on air and you cry about it. You go on air and you're Kyle Sampson on 99.3 The Drive and you talk about, things that are going on. You deal with your stuff. And you shouldn't bottle it in. I'm not encouraging that, but you put the positive things out there, and then you have your Dave and I's relationship. I wouldn't typically tell people we go measure parking lots at 2 a.m. or but that's what we do. And so you have the personal side that you don't advertise online, but it's all the same person.
Don't bring your negativity into the world. Share it with your friends, sort it out, solve it, and move on. Right?
Yeah, share it with the people close to you.
You don't have to bring your negativity into the world and infect it with everyone. That's how we end up with this perfect shitstorm of negativity on social media with people yelling into the void.
Well, if I'm upset about something, I might call one of you and we talk about it and we work through it, or I'm upset, sad, mad, angry, happy, whatever, and we talk about it. But you don't need to do all of that publicly with people who you don't really know or connect with on a regular basis. That's for your friends and your family and the people close to you.
That line? It's from Saving Private Ryan. We tell our team at Ness all the time when they're like, it's near the start of the movie. They're like, Lieutenant, how come you never complain? And he goes, gripes go up, not down. I remember watching that movie and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Gripes go up, not down. Like, you never see the lieutenant complain in that movie. And it is. It's like, people don't get it. It's like, if you just complain into nothing, it does not solve it. It's an amplifier of your problem. That negativity, that problem, that whatever, just screaming it out, taking it to the wrong people, it just amplifies the problem. But to find people who can listen and do not, like, at least listen, but maybe not resolve, or people who have good advice, and to find those safer spots to go up with it instead of out, because the out is like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
That's the social media right now. Is like, who are you talking to? It's not me. Here's a picture of me and my kids.
It's not your closest friends, the people who really should be part of your life.
My high school acquaintances need to know what my perspective is on vaccination and vaccine. It's like,
gosh, we could do a whole other hour on social media. Let's not talk about social media anymore. Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I do love social media at the same time.
Amazing pros. I mean, gosh, you wouldn't be able to do the charitable things you do, and you wouldn't be able to connect with people the way you do. Like, we couldn't do what we do, but at the same time, it's like time and place. Certain things belong, certain things don't.
Platform.
My greatest highs and my lowest lows all come in social media. Solving problems and helping people and saving people, love it. Great highs, spend the whole day euphoric. And then just read one good friend saying something negative about there being concentration camps in Australia, just makes me want to give up living. I'm just like, ugh, just what is humanity sucks. What's the point?
Yeah.
You go from like, we just saved someone's life to, ugh, this world sucks. And it's that those people don't realize the damage they can do with that post. And ironically, the great humanity you can have with another post. It's such a dichotomy, right? It's crazy.
It's really
bizarre. Social media. Yeah,
I think I don't want to add to your list and steal your podcast, but I think we all agree. We've all talked about it offline here that 2021's been a challenging year. Probably the hardest year in my life. I think it's similar for everybody. Let's agree to do something absolutely fun and ridiculous and absurd together in 2022.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is yet. I'm not sure what I'm pitching, but whether it's go to Dubai for a concert or whatever, right?
You don't have
crazy.
to sell me on that. You just have to give me more than a week's notice.
That's
that's the only requirement. It's always like 1 week's notice. You want to go to Dubai next week?
You want to go to New York? What? Did you get the New York invite?
Actually, I did, I believe. Too,
It's like,
I called both of you. Both of you said no.
Yeah, and I love New York, one of the greatest cities on earth. And it's not hard to get me to go there.
But let's do it. Let's commit to something just crazy, ridiculous, and fun. now in 2022 because
What if we just stay home? What if everything opens up and then we just stay home in 2022? What if that's a crazy thing? People just go out and do
Everybody's
their thing.
out and we just
yeah,
stay
we're just
home.
like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay home.
gosh, I can't do it.
No, you'd go
You know,
crazy.
it's funny. Somebody said, let's all go to like Mexico and sit on a beach. And I thought, all I've done for 2 years is sit around on my couch. Besides, some of the stuff, but like really, it feels like I've been so cooped up. I'm like, I want to go to like skydiving. I want to go to
You want
Packed Stadium.
adventure tourism is what you
Yeah.
want. You don't want relaxing
No,
tourism.
I want to do something wild and crazy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm craving. So let's do something wild and crazy.
Sold. Done. I'll commit to that.
All right.
Join
And
the
hopefully we're
UFC.
making a post saying we said we'd do it in Crazy Damn Canadians, and here we are doing it. Hi,
Sounds good. You
George.
committed?
Well, I'll post it on our social media.
Dave's
Yeah.
committed.
Well, that's yeah.
You just got to ask his 7 kids' permission. 6 kids right now.
Yeah, we got
There's
one
no way
less.
to talk about Janine.
Oh.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're going to wrap this up and say thank you so much to you guys for being on the episode. Thank you to our executive producer, Stellan Alpe, and to my partner, Scott McWalter, and Andrew for doing all our behind
Thanks,
the scenes
guys.
and popping that beautiful picture up. And we'll see you around, Prince George.